explaining the three effects that cause this curve to slope downward. Then distinguish between a change in the aggregate quantity of goods and services demanded and change in aggregate demands, and multiplier. So firms face four sources of demand: household, personal consumption, other firms, investment, government agencies, government purchases, and foreign markets and exports. Aggregate demand is the relationship between the total quantity of goods and services demanded from all the four sources of demand and the price level, all of the determinants of spending unchanged. We will use the implicit price deflator as our measure of the price level. The aggregate quantity of goods and services demanded is measured as real GDP. We can also use the CPI as the price level on the vertical axis. So in this case, the aggregate demand curve shows the relationship between real GDP and price. So in this case, what's the relationship between real GDP and price on this on the aggregate demand curve? Like,
excuse me, Prof. When demand increase, the prices increase too.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So so that's true. Yeah. So like if it shifts like this, if it shifts out, then so that would cause, let's say it shifts out like this, it would increase the price. So like we could kind of track that. So let's track the change in price. So if it shifts out like that, the price for 12,200 real GDP, that's in billions of base dollars. So so the price for that real GDP goes up from 1.10 to 1.16-ish. So yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Also, in this curve, real GDP and price have a negative relationship. So as price goes up, real GDP goes down. And this makes sense because people buy less when it's more expensive. That kind of makes sense. So then at each price level, the total quantity of goods and services demanded is the sum of components of real GDP, as shown in the table. There's a negative relationship between the price level and total quantity of goods and services demanded, and all the other things have changed. So let's place this. So at point A, at price level 1.18, $11,800 billion worth of goods and services will be demanded. At point C, a reduction in the price level to 1.14 increases the quantity of goods and services demanded to 12,000 billion. And at point E, at price level of 1.10, 12,200 billion will be demanded. So aggregate demand. The negative slope of the aggregate demand curve shows that it behaves in the same manner as an ordinary demand curve, but it's a bit different. So there are two reasons for a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded in individual markets. So a lower price allows people to buy more of the cheap product because it's cheaper, so they buy more. And then a lower price makes a higher real income. So like when they say that, that means like if you are making $100,000 a year and your groceries cost $20,000, and let's say and your living expenses are $40,000 a year, you 100,000 divided by 40,000 equals 2.5. So that you can purchase So like you can purchase 2.5 times your living expenses with your income. So let's say if you're making, let's say if you are making $100,000 a year next year, and the living expenses go down to $20,000 a year. 100,000 divided by 20,000 equals 5. So you can purchase 5 times your living expenses with your income. So yeah, the that's a big, like, it shows you that if your costs go down, your real income goes up. So like in that case, your real income's 5 times, and before your real income was 2.5 times. That's a good scenario. Oh yeah, Michael?
So if the price goes down, won't your income also go down because there's less money circulating back?
That's a good point. I like that point. You're right. We're just assuming. So we're just assuming that your income will stay the same. But what you brought up is a good point, because if your expenses go down, your income is likely to go down too. That's very true, right? Yeah, like yeah, you're right. There'd be less money coming into the economy, but here we're just assuming that income would stay the same. But your point's a good point on that.
Okay, thank you.
So then why does aggregate demand slope downward? So it does because the downward slope of the aggregate demand curve shows that so when the price level falls, the real value of wealth increases. So there's more purchasing power. So like if the price level falls by 25%, then $10,000 of wealth could purchase more goods and services than it would have if the price level had not fallen. So that's why it's downward sloping, because if prices go down, you can buy more goods. So like, so if the price level goes down, you can buy more goods. So so like, so as the curve goes downward, the price level goes down, you can buy more goods. Then the tendency for the change in the price level to affect real wealth, and thus through consumption, is called the wealth effect. Suggests a negative relationship between the price level and the real value of consumption spending. So a reduction in demand for something, it lowers its price. So lower price reduces interest rates, and yeah. So the interest rate effect is when the price level affects the change in the interest rate. Then the third reason for the rise in the total quantity of goods and services is showed through a lower price in the economy will reduce the prices of goods and services relative to foreign produced goods and services. So this will, so in this case, so the products and services, if this happens in Canada, the price of products and services goes down, then more foreign countries will purchase our products. More specifically, then we will have more foreign purchases of our goods and services. Because it is cheaper to buy it here compared to other nations. So that'll increase net exports. Yeah, so that's a good point there. So aggregate demand AD, downward sloping AD from the three effects of change in P. Interest rate effects, price goes up, interest rate goes up, finance cost goes up, expenditure goes down. Substitution effect, price goes up in Canada versus the US. Exports go down, imports go up, expenditure goes down. So in this case, price in our country is higher than in a foreign country. Therefore, they will buy less in our country because we are more expensive. And this will lead to a reduction in net exports because people will buy from the foreign country instead because it's cheaper. And then wealth effect, price goes up, nominal wealth goes down, and then expenditure goes down. So aggregate demand changes in response to change in any of its components, an increase in total quantity of consumer goods and services demanded at every price level. For example, what is shift the aggregate demand from the right? So an increase in consumption, investment, government purchases, or net exports shifts the aggregate demand curve to the right. So like any of these things, consumption, investment, government purchases, and net exports, if they go up, aggregate demand will shift to the right. And then if they go down, aggregate demand will shift to the left. What factors might cause the aggregate demand curve to shift? So changes in consumption, consumer confidence examples after 1929 and before 2008. Tax policy. So like if taxes go up, consumption goes down. Also, if consumer confidence goes up, consumption goes up. And then if welfare and social assistance payments go up, consumption goes up. Changes in investment, expectation of firms, higher or lower sales. Changes in interest rates also affect investment, thus aggregate demand. Tax policy increase or decrease capital gains. If we expect higher sales, aggregate demands will go up. If we expect higher interest rates, aggregate demand will go down because it is more expensive to borrow to grow your company with borrowed money. In tax policy, if taxes go up, aggregate demands will go down because there is less money to invest. Specifically, if capital gains taxes go up. Capital gains taxes go up. Yeah. So what factors might cause the aggregate demand to shift? Changes in government purchases. An increase in government purchases increases aggregate demand. A decrease in government purchases decreases aggregate demand. Dramatic increases in defense spending to fight World War II accounted in large part for the rapid recovery. So what factors might cause the demand curve to shift? So an increase in net exports will shift the aggregate demand curve right. An increase in foreign incomes increases the country's net exports and aggregate demand. The foreign country in this case has higher income, therefore they can afford more of our goods. Therefore, our net exports go up. And for example, several major U.S. trading partners in Asia suffered recessions in 1997 and 1998. Lower incomes in those countries reduced U.S. exports and tended to reduce. So to get the multiplier, you got to do 1 divided by the 0.5 to get, and then that's 2. Then we take the 2 and multiply it by the planned spending, which is 2 billion. 2 times 2 billion equals 4 billion. So that's how we do it here for that. Then country B, the MPC for country B. Oh wait, sorry, I mean MPS. Sorry about that. MPS was 0.5. Sorry. So country B's MPC is 0.9. So we want to find the MPS of country B. So we have to take 1 minus MPC. So that's 1 minus 0.9 equals 0.9. So then we do 1 divided by 0.1, and then we get 10. Then we take the 10 and multiply it by the planned spending, which is 2 billion. 10 times 2 billion equals 20 billion. So do you understand it? Like, do you want me to go through it again, Michael?
No, the calculations are clear. I just don't understand what is 4 billion and what is 20 billion. That's the return on the spending. Like,
yeah,
exactly what.
Yeah, basically, it's like let's say you put in 2 billion as an investment, and like it becomes 4 billion after a few years, right? Like it creates, let's say you spend that on something, it creates $4 billion of value.
So it's just the growth of the spending.
Yeah, exactly. Like let's say you put $2 billion worth of money into BMO, Bank of Montreal.
Oh, okay. I think I understood. Sorry to stop.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I encourage
the investments from the government, like when the government purchases stuff from the population, and
yeah,
return. Okay.
Yeah. So good questions. So yeah, feel free. Like I want you to ask questions, as much questions as possible. That's a great question. Because like I didn't understand what the multiplier was for the longest time too. I didn't understand why we're doing it, but now like I do now, but it took me a long time. But the 2 billion, so it's like you spend 2 billion on something, on an investment, right? So like, for example, you spend 2 billion on making rockets, let's say, right? The multiplier multiplied by the 2 billion will show you what the investment will be worth in, let's say, 5 years. Yeah. So the multiplier shows you how much the investment will go up. So the short run and long run. So the short run in macroeconomics analysis is a period in which wages and other prices do not respond to changes in economic conditions. So wage and price stickiness prevent the economy from achieving its natural level of output and its potential output. So the long run macroeconomic analysis is a period where wages and prices are flexible. In the long run, employment will move to its natural level and real GDP potential. Long run, the natural level of employment occurs when the real wage adjusts, so the quantity of labor demanded equals the quantity of labor supplied. So real GDP reaches potential because wages and prices are assumed to be flexible in the long run. So a big difference between the long run and short run is long run wages and prices can change. all fixed costs are variable in the long run. And then short run, wages and prices are not that flexible. Fixed costs are not variable. So that's a big difference because this kind of influences shutdown decisions. So like long run factory shutdown when it is losing a lot of money. And then short run factories stay open because they can cover variable costs. That's a big difference. In the long run, the economy can achieve its natural level of employment and potential output at any price level. So with aggregate demand at 81, real GDP is 12,000 billion per year and the price level is 1.14. If aggregate demand increased to 82, real GDP is 12,000 billion per year, but a higher price level of 1.18. Aggregate demand decreases to 83. Long run equilibrium will be still at 12,000 billion per year with the new lower price level. Short run analysis, the macroeconomy in the short run, a period in which stickiness of wages and price may prevent the economy from operating at potential output. So short run prices and wages are not flexible. So the economy is not operating at potential output. And short, so long, so if aggregate demand increases to 82, both real GDP and the price level will rise. If aggregate demand decreases to 83 in the short run, both real GDP and the price level will fall. A line drawn through points A, B, and 3 traces out the short run aggregate supply curve SRAS. So give me 1 second, everybody. So wage and price stickiness are that the economy is not operating at potential. Many prices in the economy do adjust quickly to changes, but a lot of them don't. So prices for fresh food and shares of common stock are two such examples. Nominal wages, price of labor adjust very slowly. So wages are very not flexible in the short run, but long run they are flexible because employment contracts they run out after a few years. So then wages adjust, but as the contracts are under, let's say, one year to 2 years to 3 years, the wages don't go up. So it takes a few years for wages to go up. Your wages stuck over the period of the contract, basically. And then minimum wage laws prevent wages from falling below legal minimum, even if unemployment is rising. Price stickiness. So wages not changing leads to prices not changing either. So yeah, it takes a while for prices and wages to change. So in the US it's different from here. Here we get our health insurance from the government, but the US mostly it's mostly private, like they gotta pay for their own insurance. They gotta pay for their insurance mostly. That's great. So they gotta pay for the insurance in the US privately, while we get it through the government here. So that can increase cost production. So this might lead to firms hiring fewer workers, and this would shift supply to the left. So supply would shift left in this case because they're paying more for health insurance to these workers. So real GDP, price level, supply. So an increase in health insurance premiums paid by firms increases labor costs, reducing short-run aggregate supply this way. So it shifts supply left. So price level rises, output falls. So reduction in health insurance premiums would have the opposite effect. So aggregate supply would shift right for short-run aggregate supply. So suppose the federal government increases spending for highway construction. This circumstance leads to an increase in U.S. government purchases and an increase in aggregate demand.